I'll give everybody a minute to jump in the party. You don't like my camo Boston Red Sox hat? I'm dusting this one out of the dustbin. This is a camo Red Sox hat, and I have a collection of them behind me. And I will bust different ones out for different occasions. This is the camo one. Make sure you guys smash the like. Tell your friends that are fellow Yellow Jacket degenerates to join the channel, join the site. It's much appreciated. We're getting ready to run a cool promo later this week, so tell your friends that are down for following the Jackets as hopefully they start to turn a corner. And we'll see what's going on. I have a Braves hat back there, but I'm a Red Sox guy. I'm going to be true to myself. I will wear a Braves hat. They're playing the Mets, and I hate the Mets on Wednesday. So rest assured, I'll bust out the Braves hat for that one for you guys. All right, folks, let's get started. Well, thank you for joining me. It's been an interesting day. So I told Brent Key threw a little bit of a hand grenade at us today ahead of the media situation. And I have a house full of lunatics right now. So if you hear anything behind me, it's my nephews who are in town from New Jersey hanging out with my kids. So they're a little bit rambunctious. So yeah, Brent Key walks out, starts his presser. I had heard Sunday for sure what I'd kind of been hearing it was going on for a hot minute, that it was probably going to be Haynes at least for the Louisville game. And I just kind of was thinking to myself, well, crap, I'm going to have to sit on this for 10, 11 days or 12 days, whatever it is. And obviously all the stuff went down yesterday where he informed the players and then talked to the team leadership today on Tuesday and all of that stuff. So, ultimately, I think age and experience played a factor in this, and arm talent, consistency, all of those things come into play when you make a quarterback decision. And something I alluded to on I guess it was Sunday, relationships are a key piece here. Having a guy that was recruited by two of your offensive coaches for their system, like all of those things kind of come into play. And it seems like it's dialed up for Haynes at the moment, and things can change. Obviously, he's been had multiple opportunities to be starting quarterback. Was Texas A&M starting quarterback in 2021 and 2022. 2021, he gets hurt in game 2, out for the season. And then last year, he got benched after struggling early in the year. So I think that I wouldn't read too much into any comments. What they're going to do is whatever Brent Key thinks gives them the best chance to win. So I think that the one thing that I know more about Brent than anything else is that he's going to do the thing he thinks ultimately gives his team the best chance to win. All bets are off. And so this is an example of it. I think everyone kind of expected, and after the spring, Zach Pyron had a considerable lead. Haynes King worked hard in the summer and shrunk the lead. And then they competed again in the fall, and it seemed like, as I kind of alluded to over the last few weeks, it's gotten tighter and tighter. And I think it was the decision they came to. Now, whether you agree with it, don't agree with it, none of us know, because there's maybe 2 or 3 people on the board that are actually even watched a scrimmage or whatever. And I'm seeing a small fraction of practice. I can't give you an educated take on where things are. I can tell you from what I hear and what I think, and you know, it just sounded like Haynes had a really good fall camp, and so they went that direction. Does it mean that that's the guy who's going to start the rest of the games? I think was it 2019 told us that was not the case, because I think that was they started Tobias Oliver in the opener against Clemson. He ended up playing receiver like a couple weeks later. So you just never know what's going to happen. And I think the guy down the street that just didn't graduate at like 35 tells you the story of that, right? Like he was at Georgia forever, and they kept bringing in guys to beat him out, and he would eventually beat them out. And so you just never know with these situations. You know, I feel confident saying that one of the walk-ons probably won't be playing quarterback this year, but I think you could see Zach Pyron play a lot. I think you could see Haynes play a lot, and I think you could see even Zach Gibson potentially play at some point. They've not made it through a season a long time with one quarterback. So the reality is there's going to be guys that play. That's college football these days with the helmet rules and all other stuff. You're always a play away from having to go in anyways. They're in a good situation that they have two guys they feel like they can go and win a game with, at least probably three was what Brent said. And obviously the North Carolina game showed they could win a game with Zach Gibson last year, and he played well in the Georgia game. So, you know, that's the situation. I think it's going to be interesting to see what the other choices are, just in terms of like what play calling looks like, what the personnel packages, even like what the formations and all those things are for Haynes King. And that's all the stuff that will be kind of an unknown going into that Louisville game. They threw the kitchen sink out in the spring, so you saw everything from, you know, two tight ends and two slots to whatever. So I think it's going to be an interesting evolution even week to week in terms of just what they have base plays, they have their base stuff, but what the formations look like, that's something Buster Faulkner's talked a lot about, is just changing the window and changing the picture, I should say, pre-snap for the defense. So those are all the things that will be interesting. Somebody asked a question, is this the first time that Georgia Tech has had two 4-star quarterbacks? I don't know if Graham was on the team at the same time as Jeff Sims. They were on the team. James Graham was Jeff Sims' backup quarterback in 2020. Or I think that's right. Is that right? No, maybe I'm wrong about that. It was James Graham. Now you've got sending me down a internet rabbit hole. It's James Graham on the team in 2020. I feel like he was. I feel like he was like the dark horse that season. But I don't think it's going to – someone asked if it's going to be quarterback roulette. I don't think it's that either. I think they have what they think is going to be the quarterback situation. Yeah, James Graham did play in 2020. So they've had two 4-star quarterbacks. And even within this situation, they had three actually at that point, because you had Jordan Yates on the team too. So they had three in 2020 on the team. And I think Haynes might not even been a 4-star with Rivals. I don't remember, but he was close if he wasn't. He was like a 5'7", right off the edge. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a fun quarterback thing to watch. I mean, I think these things are always interesting when they're not like clear, and they've gone 100 different ways. You have the Tobias Oliver situation that I mentioned before. You've had, covering Georgia, I covered one with Joe Tereshinski III and Matt Stafford and Joe Cox and a three-headed. There's actually a fourth quarterback, Blake Barnes, who never played on that team. And Mark Richt, who was Chris Winke's mentor, struggled to figure that out. And Joe T3 was like the son of one of the coaches and a longtime coach. So there's always like these weird stories. I can think of like 100 of them. Blake Barnett at Alabama was one where he gets unseated. And then there's ones where like a guy gets the keys turned over to him and he goes and just balls out. There have been a few of those too, where like somebody transfers from somewhere and the light comes on and they're lights out. And you just won't know. Like none of us know. Brent doesn't know. Buster Faulkner, Chris Winkie, they don't know. I think no one knows what's going to happen. I will tell you that it sounds like the guys have handled this pretty well, considering, and that's good to see. Obviously, probably a bitter pill for Zach Pyron and his family today, with it becoming public. But I think just from everything I've gathered, everyone's kind of handled this the right way as much as they could. So I think that's an encouraging situation, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'll jump into the questions here just to kind of keep things more focused online, and I'll start the ones on JOL, and then we'll jump into the ones in the chat. Has King's throwing motion been fixed? It looks like it's changed a little bit. It's a little less hitchy from what I've seen. Yes, that is a fake telly, a Squire blue back there that I never get to play because I'm always working. Have they fixed his throwing? It looks smoother. I don't know. Like I'd have to go back and like watch him at A&M to see like what, because I've seen it so much now at practice every day that I don't notice his throwing motion. It doesn't stand out to me. So it looks okay. So is Gibson not the opening game starter? No, I think even Zach and his family kind of knew the odds on that one were pretty limited. Yeah, Squires are great guitars. 9.5 threads and a QB decision on 9-2 if we lose on 9-1. Absolutely, they'll be calling for people in the game if the game's not going like well out of the gate. And that's the thing Brent rightfully made the comment about today, which is you're not going to go in and yank him if he has 2 bad series to start the game. Now, if he's just stinking the joint up, I'm sure that there will be a hook, and there's a certain amount of time that you're not gonna just be like, hey, I'm gonna trot these guys out here and whatever happens happens. They're gonna make some changes if the offense is struggling, and it's the Q's fault. And that's the other thing in all of this too. You have to look at the whole picture. Like, is the offensive line executing? Are the running backs executing their part of the game? Are the receivers catching balls? Are they dropping balls? All of those things factor into those decisions. And fans tend to just look at like the stat line, and this is, he was 11 for 33 or whatever. And sometimes there's a little more to that. Like they're running for their life. Haynes got that experience at Alabama and played well in that game. That's sort of the one real standout game that he had at Texas A&M. It seems like the prevailing notion is still both will play. How do you see that shaking out? Maybe Pyron, some short yardage runs or something else. I just think in this day and age, there's very few quarterbacks that take every snap and start every game, even, at a pretty high level programs. Yes. That maybe have really good offensive lines or whatever. But even then, even the Kenny Pickett's of the world sometimes would come out of games. So I think that you will definitely see both play this year. I think as Brent said, you may see all three. I hope you see all three in week 2 against South Carolina State. That would be a vast improvement over the last couple FCS games that Georgia Tech has played. How's Wes Durham taking the news? I have no idea. I haven't talked to Wes about it. Have the rest of the starters been named? No, they will not. They'll drop a depth chart probably whatever our media is for next week. I don't know if they haven't told us yet what it is. I think usually it'll be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Next week it could be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It could just be Tuesday, Wednesday. It could be whatever because they're playing on Friday, so it'll be a little bit of a different schedule. But whenever Brent Key has his first press conference for Louisville game week, I think they'll put out a depth chart. That's what at least Brent has told us, and the SIDs there as well. What differentiated King on the field? From the field, of quarterbacks. I would say, maturity and experience. He's 3 years older than Zach Pyron. He's a guy that's technically a junior in college right now. That's going to give you a little bit of an advantage no matter what. Like just having three full years of strength and conditioning, even if it was in another place, having all that time to work on stuff. Here's the other thing with Zach, and that people don't realize, he was in an option offense early in his career. He wasn't developed the same way that a lot of these quarterbacks were. He was a guy that a lot of it was sort of self-development. It was not the traditional thing, whereas Haynes is a coach's son and was groomed and all this stuff. And they ran a lot of different things as well. He was running some weird things early in his career, more option oriented, and then switched to more of a spread, and then, you know, developed from there. But it was not the traditional path that you see a lot of quarterbacks go through. So that's something to also file away in the back of your head. It's he's been a guy that's been playing since he was like 14, but he's been in a variety of different situations since then. Where did he improve from the spring to get to the place where he's a QB1? I think he's been more consistent. We noticed it, little bits and bobs we see that, but I think he's just, Haynes was a lot better in the spring. I think he was a little bit lost, and that happens a lot of times when you change offenses. You have Winky who's teaching him something different, or teaching him a more thorough way of doing things. All of that's a learning curve, even if you're an older guy. And so I think that he maybe settled down. Pyron seems like the type will put his head down and keep grinding. That's worth everyone on this board that loves him. But is there any worry about disgruntledness or looking for different opportunities? Nothing can go on now. Everyone's locked in. There's no portal. There's none of that stuff. They're not the type that would jump ship at the first sign of stuff. I've known that family since he was still in high school. Great people. Chaz and Lee, his mom, and his dad, Chaz, they're great people, quality people. They're very respectful, and they would, I think, want the same thing that Brent talked about for their son to be a very successful quarterback at Georgia Tech. And whether it happens this year or down the line, we don't know. But the one thing that's a constant in this business now with the portal is everything's changing all the time, and even coaches and assistants change. So attitudes can change, systems can even change year to year. So I think everyone's basically in a year at a time evaluation period, unless you've burned your transfer. So with Zach, my expectation is he'll be at Georgia Tech for a long time. Assuming a 50% middle of the road performance out of King, how many seasons do you see Haynes King being the starting quarterback at Georgia Tech? I think that's a crazy question, and no offense to the person that asked it, but let's see him get through game one and play the whole game, and game two and play the whole game before we start talking about how long so-and-so is at school. This isn't like Stephon Marbury coming out and balling out like in one season and being done. If he was that good, he would be the starting quarterback at Alabama right now, or somewhere like that, Haynes King. And that's, shot on Haynes, but that's how it is, right? What do you see as Haynes King's main football strengths? Sharp guy, moves well, throws the ball well, has, a command of the offense, what he wants to do with the ball. I think he can see the defense well. His progressions are going to be pretty solid just because he's an older guy. He's played a lot. Is this more of Haynes King being experienced and having played in some big games, or is it more suited to start in the nationally televised opener, or is he clearly QB1? I think that they feel like he gives them the best chance to win on Friday night in 10 days. And I think anyone reading more than that into this at this point is going way too far, because even if, say, Buster Falker and Chris Winkie think that Haynes is our guy, he's the guy, right? If he doesn't perform when the lights are on, that changes everything. And the one thing that was big about Zach Pyron a year ago is he struggled in practice because he was a freshman learning an offense that's pretty complicated. And then he turned out to be more of a gamer and played totally different with the lights on. And guys go back and forth. Zach Gibson was a great practice quarterback and struggled more with the lights on with the Swiss cheese O-line and the game plan that was set up for Jeff Sims. Like, a lot of it's context. And so I think that, they have a plan to win games with all three quarterbacks, depending on who it is. And that's the way they're going to approach things. And that's the way I think Brent's told them to approach that. So does Haynes King still wear the helmet from Spaceballs? Again, it's funny you guys notice this stuff up close. Like, I've never noticed his helmet looks any different or whatever. I don't know. Maybe I'm silly. Pyron seemed to have mojo with the offense last year. Does King offer that much of a dynamic difference to win a game? Don't know yet. again, everyone looks good when you're not live and you can't be hit. And when you can be hit and when you're live, there's a long history of guys that have played at Georgia Tech that look great in practice, and when the lights come on, can't do it, or get out, or someone else overperforms or whatever. Like, and then there's guys who are terrible guys in practice or mediocre or whatever that do well. You know, I think Pyron was okay last year in practice from what I gathered, but wasn't great and played well in the couple games he played. You know, Matthew Jordan, I think, was another one of those dudes back in the day. Like, there have been a few of those dudes. Taquan Marshall was like a guy that was not necessarily lights out in practice, but played well in games. So you just never know. Do you think Brent's decision is more of an affirmation on King's progress, maturity, or an indictment on Pyron's youth and growing skill set, or neither? I don't know. Like, that would be me really trying to get in the head of Brent Key and Chris Winkie and Buster Faulkner. And I know Brent pretty well at this point. I don't know Buster very well. I've had some nice conversations with him, but it's not like he's my buddy and I've known him for 20 years. And same with Winkie. Winkie and I get along, and I've had some really interesting conversations with him over the years and over the last 2 years. But again, like, I can't get in their heads. It's not like if you were asking me in 2016 what Paul Johnson thought about something, I could probably give you a pretty good answer because I've been around him for a long time and understand how he works. And I think you guys saw that, those who've been around long enough to remember the infamous Vadley season in 2013, where I kept talking about Justin Thomas is like a year away, and telling everybody that he was going to be the guy eventually. And then in 2014, he's the guy, and they suddenly look lights out. Can you please ask Brent Key why he didn't consult Jackets Online before making the quarterback announcement? I'm telling you, I screwed up the tweet. I'm working on like 3 hours of sleep last night. My toddlers got bit up by mosquitoes, was in our bed last night and unhappy and waking up, and then woke up early this morning and woke me up about an hour before I needed to get up and was jabbering away. And so I was like so shocked that, like, if you go look at the tweet I had that all these people retweeted, it's a friggin' typo. Basically, it's correct in the most like obscure way of saying it's correct, but it was kind of a crap tweet. Looking back, you were definitely leading us towards Haynes King being named the starter for the past little bit. What was it made you hearing that he was going to realize he was going to be named the starter? I was just reading the tea leaves, man. Like, I hear a lot of stuff, and that's all it was. Certainly wasn't anything we saw. Like, they've lined up the same damn way every day in practice. And so it wasn't anything I saw. I was just listening to my sources and then kind of reading the tea leaves, man. In your opinion, do you think the correct decision was made? No idea. Again, like, I'm not there. They're there every day. I would hope that these dudes are professional enough to make the right decision that gives them the best chance to win games, because if they don't, Brent Key's going to kick them out on the curb. And Brent Key's going to be out of a job if he doesn't make those decisions. And everything I know about Brent is that he's going to do whatever it takes to win. So if he thinks Haynes King against Louisville is the move, then that's why he made that move. If it turns out to not be the move in the following week against South Carolina State, then so be it. Is King's read option style quarterback after the injuries, which could be as a high ceiling. So Haynes King is an RPO guy. Like, they can run a lot of that stuff with him. Zach can run those things as well, but Haynes has a ton of experience with RPO. So it gives them some flexibility if that's what Buster wants to do. I don't know what their game plan is. I just know that it definitely having to prepare for both of them, and then also having to prepare for some of his different things that he showed on film at A&M is definitely a complicating factor for Louisville defensively. Which is slower, traffic on 285 or King's throwing motion? His motion sped up quite a bit. That is a very funny question, though, and I appreciate the comedy. Since you're leading toward Pyron, starting post-spring, I'm guessing that King won the job by grasping things quicker in the fall and perhaps does better under the pressure situations. Maybe it'll be lower expectations, something that Zach could always catch up to. My thought is Zach Pyron has put a tremendous amount of pressure on himself for a guy that's 19 years old and has played 3 college football games and started 2. And you saw that in the like he just plays balls out like he is. That's how he is, and I think he is was very, very, very focused on trying to be the guy, and he's in leadership for the team, like all these things as a really young guy. And so when I look at it, I'm like, this is a guy that's going to be very successful in life, but you have to be able to manage some of that stuff too. And I think that's probably one of the things he's struggling with now too is just not making it so hard on himself. So I will get into the chat questions now here. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna probably. So someone asked me if I could do a 22. I will give you my best guess at the 22 probably this weekend um, on the site. I'm not gonna do that on a free chat though. That's premium content, baby. What should we expect from the wide receivers? Seems like we have a lot of bodies, but do any of the guys have separated themselves from the group? Tried asking this question today in kind of a roundabout way. Wasn't answered really. Obviously, Malik and Christian Leary, the two slot guys, are pretty dynamic. I think they have a group of about, as Brent said, 6 to 8 guys that are all sort of lumped together, and they're going to have to sort that out on the field. And then there's the looming thing of if when Leo Blackburn comes back this season. And I'm of the opinion that we will see him again this year, and he will play at least a decent amount of games. But we will see. That's all up in the air still. What's my record prediction for the season? I've said I'm the 4 to 8 win category, somewhere in there. It just depends on so many other factors. They're deep at some spots than at others. There's what happens at running back, what happens at quarterback, what happens at corner, like all of those things, linebacker production. Those will be what turns a season from 4 wins to 8 wins. What does the game plan look like for Louisville? Come on, man. Really? Like, I have no idea. I haven't spent a second watching whoever the hell. I can't even tell you who Louisville's defensive coordinator is yet. I have not looked at that, so I have no idea what the hell their game plan would be for that game, and would probably be not particularly inclined to share it if I knew. What other pictures on the wall hang behind me? That's my degree. That's my wife's degree. That is a autographed ZZ Top 1981 thing from ZZ Top that they gave a guy I used to work for who worked for ZZ Top, Bon Jovi, Motley Crue, Grateful Dead, Allman Brothers, all the stuff he did, art and merch for them. It's a really good friend of mine's dad, and we were helping, and him move out of a place, and he gave me that, and probably 20 years ago. It's very cool. There's a off where you can't see on this side. There's a autographed John Entwistle, like drawing he did of the Who in the year 2000 from when I saw them at Phillips Arena in 2000 before he died. That's very cool. There's a couple of things behind me, like in that tube. There's a autographed Ryan Adams poster that's not up, and then there's a bunch of stickers on my cabinet back there too. How is Jamie? Has Jamie Felix progressed? Has he shown some real promise last year? Perhaps ball security. Jamie's having a good camp by all accounts. Brent Key, that's been one of the few running backs he's mentioned, and so I think they think he's really talented. It's just about him developing and becoming a better back. It was interesting that he wanted to burn his shirt a year ago. I thought that was sort of fascinating and wanted to play in the 5th game against Georgia. Any idea why Ramblin' Rack is not selling jerseys of current players on the current roster yet? Have you heard anything about uniforms in general? The one thing I've heard is there's not going to be any like serious changes this year to uniforms. That should be. I think there's two things. One, they want to get away from the Jeff Collins uniform of the week crap, and two is that some of the lead times on some of those things quite a bit. So I'm not sure. As far as player jerseys, I have no idea. I'm not involved in that world, but I can try to ask and I'll put an answer up on JOL if I find out. What I expect attendance to be like for the game, I think it'll be really good. Louisville fans tend to show up, so I think it should be a pretty packed house. I think it should be an interesting crowd. Hopefully, it will not be similar to basketball last year, which was sort of a neutral site game at home. I think Tech will still have a little bit of home field advantage. Is cornerback a spot we should be worried about? Who do you see the number cornerback spot? Miles Sims looking good for QB number one, cornerback number one. I think all the corner stuff's still up in the air. I think you have Miles Sims, who's been battling some injury stuff, and Key says is back up and running. Kenan Johnson, who's had injury stuff, that's I think back up and running. Kenyatta Watson's having a great camp, and Amari Harvey's having a great camp, and Rod Shelley has come along at playing corner and nickel. Those are the five guys for the two spots. The two guys that have been talked about probably the most to me have been Kenyatta and Amari Harvey. And Miles has got to, get back to where he was a year ago. Hopefully he's there. I'm not sure where he's at, but I think so. My comment disappeared, but I'll say it again. Swamp Kings and Netflix pretty good. Curious how much Key's first camp was similar to Urban's first at Florida. Urban was pushing his players hard. Man, Brent worked for O'Leary. O'Leary was literally like, you can read about O'Leary's camps and what they were like. So you can only imagine. I think it was Jay King said it was very similar to Paul Johnson's camps, only it was hotter during Keys because he had them going in the afternoon, whereas Paul, I think, had, if I remember correctly, they went a little bit earlier. They might have been like noon instead of like 2. So it wasn't quite, it got real hot at the end, but it wasn't as brutal. So, yeah. What's my final score prediction for the Louisville game? Man, I have no idea. I have no idea what to expect. I told people that you're crazy if you bet on the game. I just don't think it's something that makes a lot of sense to bet on unless you just like action. Because, you're talking about two teams playing their first game with the new head coach, new quarterbacks for both teams now at this point, starting. Lots of new skill guys or different skill guys. Tech has their offensive line back. Louisville played pretty well last year. Louisville's supposed to be favored in the game because they play this sort of Charmony schedule. So I'll say this. Right now, Louisville's schedule looks soft. We don't actually know until you start to see these teams play and who's good and who's bad. But I would just be very careful with just any expectations for this. I don't know. And these games are weird. I remember the game was it 2016 in Ireland against Boston College. And if that game's played in Atlanta at a normal time, I think Georgia Tech beats the tar out of them. And that was a super close game that came down to, the very end. So, I would just say, someone said they hedged their bets and put a bunch of money in the parlay. Yeah, maybe you do that if you're a gambler. I don't know. I am not a gambler. So I've been terrible at that. Someone asked, how do you keep UGA fans out from taking over Bobby Dodd Stadium? Winning. If you win, Georgia Tech fans will show up. If they think you got a chance, they'll show up. Hopefully they'll put on another good show in that game, even though they're going to be overmatched. So any last questions from the chat, or we're going to jump out of this? And make sure you like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Helps me out. Helps me do a little bit with the algorithm here. So I heard the UGA game is off the flex pack this year. That would be smart. I think they want their fans to show up. Thoughts on conference realignment? Do you think Stanford and Berkeley will join the ACC? I wouldn't be shocked if that goes through. I wouldn't be shocked if it doesn't. I am like so over all this conference realignment. I hate all of it. I think it's awful. I thought it was stupid when the ACC brought in like Pitt and Syracuse. So Boston, no, it wasn't Boston College. It was Pitt and Syracuse that time. I just hate it. I think it's awful. I think it's bad for the game. I want them to go back to like 1992. And you guys have seen me talk about that, or my geographic puzzle where like everyone is just playing like games in their regions and stuff. Like, I think this is so stupid and it's going to kill some of the goodwill, sort of like baseball did with the strike in '94. Like, you're not going to lose everybody, but you're going to lose some people, and some of them aren't going to come back. And I know people that still have not come back to baseball from the '94 strike. I thought Louisville came to replace Maryland. That was later, wasn't it? But I don't remember. Who wins the ACC this year? My pick was, I believe, Clemson. Let me see if I can find my ballot. I still have it. I like their OC. I thought that was been the glaring hole for really since Chad Morris left. So he filled that. They have a really talented quarterback. They still have a lot of talented skill guys. I think Dabo's choice of portal usage is not optimal in this day and age, but they're still the class of the ACC. And I posted this stat somewhere else on one of my other sites today, but that was worth noting. I think since 2017, Florida State, who I think is the other hot choice, Florida State is 2-18 against the top 25 since 2017. Georgia Tech is 4-17. Georgia Tech has been pretty much garbage that whole stretch. They've had 2 5-win seasons and 1 bowl season and a bunch of 3-win seasons. Like, that's unbelievable that Florida State's been that mediocre, and they're not playing Georgia and Clemson every year. They're just playing Clemson. So, have you been able to get any feelings on the convo with J Bat and the realignment? No, I've not been bothering J Bat with that. They're actually in the process of moving out of the Edge building to get ready. They're going to tear down the Edge in December. And so Jay and his staff they've been in the process of moving for a while. They were in like suites, and now they're moving to the Wardlaw building. So all of that stuff's going on at Georgia Tech right now. So it's not really a time again. And really, there's nothing going on with Georgia Tech. So my feeling is like, I try to stay in my lane. I don't necessarily care what is going on with Stanford or Cal or whatever. I would love to go out and cover games out there, but other than that, like, I don't really have a huge interest in it. So I am not going to bother Jay with that. But Jay's a great dude. I haven't seen Jay in a while, actually, probably since the spring, to be honest with you. I haven't seen him around. I've talked to his secretary as a friend of mine, but I've not seen him since then. I'm sure he's busy trying to get things ready. He's very adamant on trying to fix all of the stuff that's wrong with the game day experience and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Any week 1 upsets? I haven't looked at week 1 that much yet. That Florida State LSU game is really interesting to me, but not a lot. I know you addressed your opinion on the crowd at MBS. Do you think the crowd at Bobby Dow will be slightly better this year because of the buzz around Key, right? I think it's going to take time to get it back to where it was when Paul Johnson left, but I think that the crowd should be better. God, I hope it is. I mean, it'll be really a shame for Georgia Tech fans if they don't start showing up again. That's on y'all if you don't show up for Brent. Brent's trying to do everything he can to win games. Do you think my $10 bet of UVA beating Tennessee will pay off? Man, if UVA beats Tennessee, I would say I go streaking or something, but I'm not crazy enough to do that because college football is weird enough to not put anything crazy like the guy who ate poo or whatever. Like, we're not doing one of those bets, but that would be almost more shocking to me than App State beating Michigan. Let me put it that way. Like, that's how little faith I have in what Tony Elliott's doing at Virginia right now. When was the last time I talked to Jeff Collins? The last time I spoke to Jeff Collins in any manner was the post-game press conference in Orlando after the UCF game. And I'm cool if that's the last time I ever talked to him. I like Jeff Fine. I just am not. He is exactly what everyone warned me about when they were looking at him. He was that was the person he was. I'll leave it at that. All right, folks. I appreciate you. I'm going to go back and check and see how the wild people are going and in my house. And thank you so much. And I'm going to post this as a podcast too. So if you're listening there, enjoy. And a blue, not red pen. So Jeff Collins would be pleased by that. But thanks everyone. And I will try to be back more regularly. Now we're in a out of camp and back into a regular schedule. I can do this. My plan is to try to do most of these after games. The Louisville game I might do on a Saturday and not Saturday night and not on Friday because A, the game's late, but B, I'm actually going to cross off one of my stadiums that weekend on Saturday. So I'm going up to Western Kentucky to watch South Florida play the Hilltoppers. So thanks, everybody. Be good. I'll see you next week.